Hi, I'm Max.
And I'm Calvin.
Welcome to the Halfcourt College Basketball Podcast, where we create and debate weekly top 25 polls and discuss top games of the week.
We'll finish each episode with discussing our top 5 players of the season. We'll get started. We're our top 10. We appreciate you listening.
All right, this is week 3. We're doing our AP poll top 10. So number 1, I got Gonzaga.
Yep, I got Gonzaga also.
And I think we should just get to number 2. I got Baylor.
Yep, same.
Yeah, I think it's easy to just talk about these two together. It's just they're like far and away ahead of anybody else.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Definitely. They could lose and they would still be 1 and 2 probably.
Yeah, definitely. There's always that I think if Baylor lost to Texas, this week, I'd probably still have them at number 2.
Oh, 100. If they lose to a real team, then they 100% don't fall. I mean, Baylor's also going to play TCU this week, and that could be a different story, but
yeah, obviously
that's not something we're really considering.
Yeah, and even if Gonzaga loses to one of the crappy teams that they play against, then maybe just Baylor goes up to 1 and Gonzaga falls to 2.
I think that's probably what happens. I don't think I see a way that Gonzaga moves below Michigan or Villanova or something.
Yeah. So, what do you think the chances are? What do you think Baylor has to do to pass them this week?
Win both their games. That's all I'm looking for.
If they win, let's say they barely beat Texas.
It's on the road. If Baylor wins at the buzzer, I'm still moving Baylor to number 1.
What about if they have a close matchup with TCU?
It would have to be it would have to be a really close. If it's a 10-point game,
like what happened to Missouri this week against TCU.
Yeah, if it's just it would have to be a really close game. I don't think that. Yeah. And I just don't think TCU is realistically going to give them a really close game.
Yeah, I mean I definitely could see putting Baylor higher, but other than Texas, if they were to beat Texas, their next best win. Obviously, they're cleaning up the Big 12, but their non-conference, their best win's Illinois, which is got back to a pretty good win. But let me pull up Gonzaga's non-conference again.
It's Iowa. Iowa's a big one. They also beat Virginia though.
Yeah, those are. Did they also play Illinois or just Baylor played Illinois?
They did not play Illinois, the Tennessee, and West Virginia and Kansas. Those were the other two at the start of the season.
Gotcha. So yeah, they kind of play similar games that Baylor's been playing.
Exactly. It's very hard to I was considering moving Baylor up this week just because their wins have been very, very similar this season.
Yeah. So I don't know. It'll be God. I wish we just got that game. I mean, if Gonzaga and Baylor played, it'd be pretty easy to pick between the two.
Oh yeah.
I don't think one could fall below the other if they had won.
Assuming they had done the exact same things after that, and one was just 16-0 or 17-0, and the other one was 16-1, then whichever one had won that game would have been the number 1 team in the country for the last 3 years, the entire season since that game basically.
Yeah. So number 3, I got Villanova.
Yeah, I got Michigan number 3.
Yeah. So I had Villanova last week at number 3.
So did I.
You moved them down. How come?
Obviously all they did this week was play DePaul, or Seton Hall. They played, they played Seton Hall, and beating Seton Hall, beating Seton Hall on the road is nice and all. But I think beating Purdue was a bigger win for Michigan. You're right. They haven't played. Yeah, so at this point, I just think that Michigan has I like the team better for the most part.
Yeah, they definitely passed the eye test more than Villanova.
Yeah, I don't in the Villanova games I've seen. I just don't see the player that is going to be there.
I think it's supposed to be Colin Gillespie.
He's. I think that he's clearly their best player, but I have more trust in Franz Wagner as a best player on a championship team at this point.
Well, I mean, I don't even know. I mean, Michigan in that way they don't even have a really best player. They got some good players, so I definitely could see. I could see a reason. I didn't have a reason to drop Villanova below Michigan, given the fact that Michigan's going to be taking 2 weeks off. I still have Villanova 3, and Michigan I got at 4. Who do you got it for?
I got Houston at 4.
Yeah, so as I was saying, Michigan still Villanova, Michigan I have in the same kind of tier. You got Houston there?
Yeah, I mean, beating SMU is about as good as what they can do, and they beat SMU by 22. So it wasn't just a casual win over SMU. That win was really big for all of their analytics.
Yeah, definitely.
I think Houston, obviously they have the 1-point loss to Tulsa. Tulsa's not good, but losing by 1 to Tulsa on the road, I'm really not that disappointed by that. So when I compare the two teams, I just like the wins that Houston got at the beginning. Compared to two teams by Houston and Villanova, I just like the wins that Houston got at the beginning of the season better.
I got Houston at 5. Who do you got?
I got Villanova at 5.
So we had the same 3, but Houston, they're playing a pretty easy, pretty easy conference schedule. You can't really fault them for that, but also it is what it is. But Villanova plays some tough teams, and sorry about that. We got a cat in the background, but we're gonna push through. So I just feel like the win against Texas is better than any win that Houston's got, in my opinion.
I do agree. I think the Texas win is the biggest win that they got. Their second win leaves something to be desired. You could make a debate about it, but it's probably a close win over Seton Hall.
Yeah, I know they haven't. The Big East also isn't a huge.
Exactly, that's part of the issue. But the Big East is a better conference than the American Conference. That's not.
Yeah, so in the next 2 weeks, Villanova will play St. John's, Xavier, DePaul, and Creighton. So that's some chances to.
Especially the Xavier and the Creighton games. Those are.
Yeah, definitely.
They'll play Creighton twice more this season. They'll play Connecticut again. They'll have their opportunities. It's just the Texas win is still good, but it's not looking as impressive as it was at one point in the season where Texas was a perennial top 5 team. And I just like the combo of the Texas Tech and the Boise State win more than.
That's fair. Boise State also lost to Colorado State this week.
Yes,
so
that is true.
It's showing less that Boise State they have a lot of wins, but they're not really the greatest team.
No, they're not. That's definitely fair. But it's and
they'll still make the tournament is the thing.
Yeah, they're definitely a tournament team, and there's just not a whole. There's not a whole lot of space between these 3 teams for me.
Yeah, that's definitely a tier.
Yeah.
So number 5 or no, sorry, we just did number 5. Number 6, I got Iowa.
Also got Iowa.
Yeah, so they lost to Illinois. It was a close game on the road, I believe.
Yes, it was on the road.
So, the AP poll had them falling all the way to 8, or I guess they had them at 7 last week, and they had them going to 8.
Yeah.
I think we both had some people that falling further, or we had people below them that the AP poll didn't have below them last time. I also dropped Texas from above them to below them, just because that's a respectful loss to Illinois on the road. And Texas also lost this week, correct?
Yes, Texas lost to Oklahoma by 1.
But that's yeah.
I think those are very comparable, and I honestly do think that even though Oklahoma is pretty highly rated this week, that Illinois is I would 100% bet on Illinois if Illinois played Oklahoma in a game.
Yeah, exactly. So I couldn't fault Iowa too much. They also still have the best player. It's not like Luka Garza went away. So.
No, Luka Garza, it wasn't like he had a bunch of a down week, really. It's just.
Yeah, so I think I had to keep Iowa there. Number 7, I got Ohio State.
Yep, number 7 also got Ohio State.
Yep, so AP poll agrees with us on that. Team's playing really well, yeah.
They had a good week. It wasn't a hugely challenging week, but Penn State is weirdly super duper high in all the advanced analytics.
Yeah, I think they have some
They have some good wins.
Yeah, they got an early one in the season. I forget who it was against, but there's a team that I always look at for my rankings, and I see that they lost to Penn State. I'm like, just that's why Penn State's pretty good.
Yeah, they beat Virginia Tech early in the season.
That's what it is.
They also have wins over Rutgers. They have a win over Wisconsin.
Last week.
They have good wins. The issue, and they play in the Big Ten, so a lot of their losses are to good teams too. Losses to Michigan, Illinois, a loss to Purdue, Illinois again, Ohio State. Almost all their losses, their only bad losses are losses to Seton Hall and Indiana, and both those were overtime games.
Yeah, so that explains why Penn State's so high. But yeah. So we had some good wins. Ohio State handled Michigan State really handily.
Yeah.
There was never a doubt that Ohio State was gonna win that game. So that's why I had them moving up to 7. I had them last week. I had them at 13. So that was a big jump for me. They also had a similar jump, I think, in the AP poll.
Yeah, I already had them at 9, so it wasn't as big for me. But you couldn't really move them up much higher. I did have them in the same area as Iowa, but I'm just not ready to move us above Iowa yet until we beat them on Thursday.
Yes, exactly. I had I had Iowa or Ohio State, not in the same tier as Iowa. I kind of had Iowa on an island in between Houston and like the next tier I have. But yeah, I mean, if we beat Iowa on Thursday, then
I think it would be really hard to deny us.
yeah, you got to put them above Iowa unless we lose the other game we played. Actually, we only have one game this week.
Yep,
So
yep. We only got one game this week.
we win and we're possibly a top 5 team if someone else loses.
Yeah,
it would be tough.
Beating Iowa gets us into the top 6. The issue is, I mean, Michigan could always lose a game. That is the benefit.
I don't know if they're going to play again this week.
Oh, you're right. I forgot
So
they may still have.
maybe Villanova against Xavier.
Yeah, so the Indiana game got postponed. Oh, that game got postponed already. So they're supposed to play Northwestern. Well, the issue is Michigan's also playing a light schedule this week. They're playing Northwestern and Michigan State.
Yeah, so I mean,
we're probably not
maybe
top
we
5
just
team.
move up a spot to 6, but
Yeah. Anyway,
so
moving on to 8.
Number 8, yeah, I got Texas.
Yep, I also got Texas.
So I think we both. So the difference we have with the AP poll is from where we have Iowa and Texas, they have them swapped.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that, but I still think Iowa's a better team than Texas at this point in the season.
I have more faith in Texas. The loss this week wasn't that bad. Obviously, Oklahoma's a pretty good team. It was a 1-point loss. It was at home, so I really think that should have been a game they won.
Yeah. Iowa needs to start winning like these games against these teams. Their best win still is like Minnesota or Purdue.
Yeah, that is the issue with Iowa. That's why I was almost able to move Iowa below us because we actually, I feel like, have better wins than Iowa at this point in the season.
Yeah, so like, the AP poll had Iowa behind us, but they had Texas higher. I think the reason I don't have Texas above us is
they kind of
the wins that got me hype on Texas aren't as good anymore.
Yeah, so they have the
Kansas.
Kansas win, yeah.
Oklahoma State's their third best, and then obviously on the road against West Virginia, but that was only a 2-point game.
That's the thing. They played a lot of really, really close games. Their losses are all within 5, and they're good teams. Their wins, besides the Kansas win where they absolutely smacked Kansas,
Also
are all
by 5, less than 5.
less than
like
5.
UNC, they only beat by 2 at home.
Yeah, exactly. They've been playing a lot of really competitive basketball. If you're looking for a good game to watch, Texas is the place to go. But
seriously, they play it down at the wire, definitely.
in terms of making their rating, their net rating or their simple rating system look good, they're just not doing a good job of that by playing all these super close games.
Definitely.
And the wins just. With the Kansas win slipping every day, the West Virginia win still looking pretty mediocre.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue Iowa over them because of when we say that Texas doesn't have good wins, Iowa doesn't have any good wins either. It's at this point nobody they've beaten is ranked other than Purdue.
Yep.
So, I mean, granted they beat UNC by more than Texas did, but you can't look at specifics and call it by that.
Exactly. The part of the issue is that they, besides playing the Illinois game, they haven't played a lot of the top teams in the Big Ten yet.
Yeah.
And so Iowa could move up pretty dramatically, or they could drop pretty dramatically.
So
depends on how their season
At this
goes.
point, we might have Iowa too high, but there's definitely an argument for where we have it at 6.
Yeah, and I just feel like given that they haven't really shown much weakness, I'm willing to wait till they show more weakness.
Yeah.
So that there's a little bit more evidence that they're not.
Yeah, I mean the Indiana
spot.
loss is kind of a bit of weakness.
Yeah, exactly.
Texas doesn't have a loss like that, so Texas's loss came to.
Oh yeah, all of Texas' loss are
top 15 teams.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know. It's definitely arguable for switching up the 6 through 8.
I really did feel there was a lot of room to I thought these teams were all pretty heavily comparable, but it's not ready to move them away from ahead of each other or move Texas ahead.
I had Texas last week. I had them all the way up at 5, and now I have them at 7. So that means I had them. I had Iowa staying the same at 6, but I had Texas dropping below them just because, weirdly to say it, I liked Iowa's loss more than Texas is. So that's why I had Texas falling and Iowa staying the same.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because
I think, as we'll get to later, Oklahoma is a little bit overrated by the AP poll.
So let's go on to number 9.
Yep.
I got Illinois.
And I got Tennessee.
Speaking of Iowa's loss, Illinois is who they played this weekend, and Illinois just looked really good this week. I think they've been really good on all of the metrics.
All season they've been
the Nets, Ken Palm, but they didn't really have a signature win, and that's their signature win. They got it,
and they had they lost to some of the less compelling teams in the Big Ten, like Rutgers and Maryland. So there was reason that Illinois slipped pretty heavily in the last few weeks, but I still think that there's. We'll talk about our Wooden Awards later. I think Illinois is just one of the most top-heavy teams in the entire league, and it's just gonna be. It's hard to. When the chips come down, it's hard to beat Kofi Coburn and Iota Suma. So
definitely, and they also have some like other people who can score at 20. I think one of another person on that team scored 20 against Iowa. So
yeah, exactly.
When you got that to like help with 2 top 10 players, possibly like I don't know if Coburn's top 10 anymore, but
I would strongly approve of that statement.
All
I
right,
think he's 100%. Yeah.
So yeah, they have like 2 top 10 players, and then they have like other players who can score. Like that's how you build a team for the tournament.
Exactly. So I ended up having Tennessee ahead of them. This week they beat Mississippi State close, but they crushed Kansas, which is obviously it's not as good as it used to look, but it is still a really good win. And part of the reason that it's not as good as it used to look is because again they just got crushed by another top team.
Yeah. So I have Tennessee at 10, and you had 10. Who'd you have?
I had Illinois at 10.
Yeah. So we just had those 2 swapped.
Yep.
I think I just had. Let me see where I had them last week.
They had slipped pretty heavily after the loss.
I still might have had them ahead of Illinois though. I had Tennessee 1 spot ahead of Illinois. I had them at 15 and 16. Obviously, a lot of people in front of them lost. Tennessee had a good win. Illinois had a better win in my opinion. So I mean, based on what I was thinking last time, they were like pretty similar spots. So that's why I had Illinois jumping ahead of them.
That's fair. I had Illinois. I had Tennessee ahead of them last week also because I had Illinois at 19 last week and Tennessee at 16.
Yeah.
So Illinois had a bigger jump, and I think Illinois' week was better. I just think that Tennessee was the better team, and I think it's just them getting back on track a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. Illinois definitely has some bad losses. Tennessee, their losses are 2.
Yeah, Missouri, Florida, both ranked teams. They lost to Alabama, another
Also
ranked team.
Yeah, they've only lost to ranked teams.
Exactly.
Their best win
is probably the Kansas win. I mean,
no, probably at Missouri, but obviously by 20. But
you're right.
They lost to Missouri like later on at home, so they kind of cancel out in a way. But
I mean, kind of. But like, I think the Kansas. But that's like the thing. They're high. They don't have that super duper high end win like Kansas
that's
and
why
Missouri.
I can like say that with confidence that like Illinois like proven they can beat the top team.
Exactly. Fair.
So that's why I have Illinois above Tennessee at the moment.
That's definitely fair. The other issue is Tennessee's really not going to have much of a chance to do much more. They're the best team they played for the rest of the season to Florida by like a decent margin.
Oh wow, yeah, they are playing the bottom feeders of the SEC.
So they're not going to have a great win this entire season unless Florida's way better than we think they are. And if they lose to Tennessee, they're probably not.
LSU on the road will be okay.
But that's so. But I do definitely get where you're coming from with Illinois. They look great in all the advanced metrics. They have a much better like signature win. I just like that Tennessee hasn't lost to a bad team at all.
That's fair, yeah.
And Illinois does have at least 2 losses to teams that would
and Illinois will have some shots to prove me right. They go to Indiana, not a terrible team, and then they host Wisconsin and go to Michigan. So those are, like, if they win those and Tennessee wins against those bottom feeder teams, I think it's fair to say that Illinois would be higher ranked.
Exactly. I would predict that Tennessee ends up the higher ranked team at the end of the season just because I think
Illinois is going to have to play a lot of good teams.
Exactly. I think Tennessee could very, very, very realistically go undefeated for the rest of the season, assuming they beat Florida.
In Illinois, probably will lose one of their games. They play a home and away against Wisconsin left, at Michigan, and then they come to Ohio for the final game.
So
there's a chance they lose one of those. But if they beat Michigan on the road, I might still have them higher than Tennessee if Tennessee wins out. I mean, I know that would be just a 3-loss season for Tennessee and a 6-loss season for Illinois, but that Michigan win will be huge.
Exactly. It may be pretty hard to deny Illinois as being the better team by the end of the season. But that's definitely going to be interesting. The top 10 seems like seems like we have
let's
better teams now. So
take a peek at the AP poll. The AP poll didn't have Tennessee or Illinois. They had Oklahoma and Alabama. I mean, I can see reason for that. Oklahoma's playing out of their minds right now.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know if I could jump them that high. I got them like just right after.
Yep.
I got them in a tier down below Tennessee. So I can see it. Alabama obviously has some great wins as well.
Alabama has some great wins.
They've beaten Tennessee.
They have some pretty horrifying losses too.
Yes,
that
is true.
Yeah, if you look at them in terms of like their quad 1 win, They're 5-1 in quad 1 play, which looks phenomenal. But then they're 5-2 in quad 2 play, and then 3-1 in quad 3 play.
Yeah.
So they have their losses have come to bad teams for the most part.
Yeah, Oklahoma, they're 4-4 in quad 1, 1-0, and both
So yeah,
quad
all
2
their
and
losses
quad
are
3.
to quad 1 teams. So you can't like really.
You can't fault them too badly.
And we'll definitely
Looking at Tennessee. Tennessee's pretty similar, 3-3 in quad 1, and just undefeated in the rest. And then Illinois Illinois has a quad 2 loss.
Yep.
And they just have one more win in quad 1 than Oklahoma. So like obviously like looking at just the quads, like I could see an argument for Illinois versus Oklahoma, but I still like Illinois' win over Iowa more than anything Oklahoma's done.
100% fair.
Well, obviously they've beaten Texas, but
and I think Rutgers is considered a quad 1. Rutgers on the road is considered a quad 1 win quad 1 win. I don't really care that much about that or quad 1 game, and that they lost that.
Yeah.
And I don't really give Rutgers a ton of credit as being a real like quad 1 team even on the road.
Yeah.
They're not bad. It's just that that loss is not something to be super proud of.
Yeah. In Oklahoma, they got losses against Texas Tech, Baylor, Kansas, and then lost big early in the season against Xavier, who's in my opinion should be a ranked team.
So do you want to just move on to the next 15 then, or?
Yeah, I say we do that.
Okay.
All right, we're going to take a break real quick, and then we'll be back and talk about the next 15. All right, so we're now going to talk about some teams in our 11 through 25. You want to start with, we kind of have them we have the same 4 teams, 11 to 15, or 11 to 14, I guess. Virginia, Oklahoma, Texas Tech, and Alabama. We have Oklahoma, Texas Tech swaps, but
that's pretty minor. We have them the same general area.
Yeah, but our big difference is Virginia, Alabama.
Yes.
You want to start on that?
Yeah, so I have Alabama at number 11 in this situation. They did not have a great week, obviously, by losing to Oklahoma and beating Kentucky. But, Kentucky's not that bad. They're a team that is nice to beat. Really, what Alabama has going for it is a very nice set of wins throughout the season. They've beaten Tennessee. They've beaten Florida. Those are, real signature wins that most teams would be very happy to have.
Yep.
In terms of Virginia, they also lost this week. They lost to Virginia Tech, which feels pretty honestly comparable to losing to Oklahoma.
Yeah. Alabama did lose to Oklahoma. You're right, but so they both had pretty similar losses. Last week I had.
Although the Virginia Tech loss was by 15 or 14, while the Oklahoma loss was only by 5.
That's fair, but Oklahoma was also missing their best player. I believe.
That's true. No, you're right about that. Austin Reeves did not play that game.
Yeah. So let me look at my last week. I had Virginia 2 spots above Alabama. So, they had pretty similar losses, and I already had Virginia 2 spots above Alabama, and Virginia also added a win they played against earlier that week they beat Syracuse, which is I think a better other win than beating Kentucky.
No, that's definitely fair. I also did have Alabama or below Virginia last time. At this point, I'm just way more interested in the wins Alabama has throughout the season. Virginia, the Virginia Tech win would have been very nice for Virginia because right now their best win is Clemson.
Clemson on the road.
Clemson on the road, Syracuse at home. Those are both pretty solid. But that if your best win is 2 teams who are not even guaranteed tournament teams at this point.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And Alabama has wins against Tennessee, Florida.
Those are big ones. But even LSU, I think is probably a higher quality win, or at least the same quality win. Or LSU,
Clemson,
Arkansas.
Yeah, that's fair. Virginia definitely doesn't have the signature win yet. Virginia Tech was really their chance to get it.
Yep. And even that, I don't know. That's not Virginia Tech's not even a team on the same level as Tennessee.
Yeah, that's fair. I understand it, but obviously, Virginia's lost only 3 times. Alabama's lost 4 times, and some of those losses they should have won.
Oh yeah,
at home against Western Kentucky, at home against Stanford and Clemson.
Those were not home games, but those were
those
were neutral site games.
That makes sense. Yeah, but still. if you're trying to be a top like 10, 15 team, I feel like you got to win those. Virginia obviously lost to San Francisco, but other than Gonzaga and Virginia Tech, those are the other two losses.
Yeah, it's much easier to forgive Virginia for their losses. The San Francisco loss is obviously bad, but like the Western Kentucky loss is pretty much like that's pretty. Those are pretty comparable.
So like, it's. Do you take the win? It's like, do you pay attention to the wins more than losses in this kind of argument? And in this case, I'm just taking the losses as like the as like how I have Virginia ahead of them. And it's mainly not like I kind of had Virginia just higher because I already had Virginia higher, and I think they had like not as bad of a week as Alabama did, because Alabama lost to like a good team obviously, but they beat like a bad team, and Virginia lost to a like pretty good team, but beat like a possible tournament team as well.
Yeah, I slightly prefer Alabama's week. I mean that's definitely, but you could definitely debate the two of them. I also, when you look at the like simple rating system or KenPom, Alabama leads both those. They're behind in net, so that's like those. You really could split hairs.
Yeah, Virginia's still doing really good in the net, so I don't know. I can see the argument going either way. I actually had Virginia in the tier with Tennessee at 10 and 11. I'm not like too like stuck to that, but I had Oklahoma, Texas Tech, and Alabama in the tier. So I had Alabama. Like, it wasn't like as close of a decision when I first made the poll, but I can see an argument.
Yeah, my issue is I'm just back to needing Virginia to kind of prove
definitely, but
what they are.
They're not going to have a shot to prove it.
Florida State on the road.
Yeah, definitely. But also another thing, Virginia is leading their conference. It's not as good of a conference, but Tennessee.
Tennessee's 9-0 in the SEC.
Sorry, Alabama. We're talking about Alabama. You're right.
Alabama's 9-0 in the
That's
SEC.
a bad argument. Sorry.
I mean, that's not necessarily the best thing about Alabama. Like, I'm not huge on that, but they have their only loss since conference play started was to Oklahoma.
Alabama at 14 might be a little low, but I also still, it's hard to look at those. They're definitely a different team than the beginning of the season, but those losses were pretty bad.
Yeah, and I can understand why you have Oklahoma and Texas Tech above Alabama, but I do think Virginia has kind of established that they are not necessarily a team that is really a threat to any high level. Like, I have no reason to believe that Virginia is a threat to a high level team.
That's fair. I just think that they can. They just have like the experience, the players that can get it done.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely not doubting Tony Bennett. That's
yeah,
can't be doing that. Virginia is always the type of team that can go on a run, and who knows, maybe Jay Huff is like a secret weapon that they're only playing 3 minutes a game, and
exactly.
All of a sudden tournament time comes around and he's playing 35 minutes a game, and Virginia looks like a top 3 team in the country. Like
yeah. So
well, who knows? Well, it's always up in the air.
Yeah. So
you want to move on to Virginia Tech?
Sure. I mean, obviously, as we just talked about, Virginia Tech had a good week. They beat Virginia.
Yeah, you have them at 15, and I
have them at 15.
Yep, and I got them at 18.
Yes. So who'd you have ahead of them?
So the teams, it was pretty tight, but for me, the big teams that were ahead of them were West Virginia and Florida State, and then Wisconsin. I really think you could split hairs there, but
Wisconsin hasn't beaten anyone, in my opinion.
I mean, Virginia Tech has the Virginia win, and like that's nice.
They've also beat Villanova.
That's true. I forgot about the
Villanova. Really good wins.
Villanova win earlier in the season.
Yeah, they obviously lost to Penn State, who by 20 is kind of shocking at that point of the season. They lost big to Syracuse, and then they lost a tight game at Louisville. But I think their wins kind of separate them from like West Virginia, whose only really good win is against Texas Tech.
Well, but I do like the Texas Tech win is like very, very nice.
But obviously it's not as good as Villanova and.
I mean, it was an overtime game. It was like that. It's not like that was.
Yeah, but the West Virginia one was also very close against Texas Tech. And then Florida State also doesn't have a signature win, and Wisconsin doesn't have a signature win. Virginia Tech just proved it more, in my opinion. Yep. I had them flying up my rankings. I had them this week 15. Last week I had them down to 23. So they beat Notre Dame on the road. Not anything special, and then they beat Virginia by 4.
Yeah, so
Or 14, sorry.
all their losses have also been like to pretty good teams: Syracuse, Louisville, Penn State. Maybe a good team.
Yeah, they haven't played a lot of games because of COVID stuff, but
Yeah, they. I mean, they're 13-3, so they're not. It's not like
I
they're
was
one of
talking
those.
about Penn State,
Oh,
yeah.
Penn State. Yeah, but still, Penn State is like a team that can take it. Like, I'm not that upset if a team loses to Penn State.
yeah, it's just in my opinion, Virginia Tech hasn't like played. They haven't like lost really badly, and the teams that you have ahead of them all haven't proven it like Virginia Tech has.
Well, I do really like some of the wins that a team like Wisconsin has.
Who has Wisconsin had so far?
I mean, the Loyola Chicago win, I think, is a really a win that's looking better and better as the season goes on.
Loyola Chicago hasn't beaten anyone realistic.
Well, yeah, but I still think Loyola Chicago is like a pretty good team. I gave him some consideration for being ranked this week.
Yeah, and then Wisconsin.
And then after that, you're looking at like a Rutgers road win,
Louisville,
a Maryland road win. It's not super flashy.
and then Wisconsin also has worse losses. They lost to. Well, they also lost to Penn State.
Yes.
And they lost to Maryland. So Virginia Tech's worst loss is like the same thing that Wisconsin did.
Yeah, and part of my issue is that Virginia Tech isn't doing very well in any of the advanced statistics.
That is. I'm confused why that is, because they have like really good wins. Their losses. What's their?
Well, the Syracuse loss was by 18. The Penn State loss was by 20.
Yeah, it's definitely their scoring margins.
The Villanova win was obviously in overtime, which doesn't help.
But they haven't. I guess they're 2-3 in quad one. It just. I don't think. It's like the quad one like isn't like specific. 2-3 in quad one doesn't look great right now, but their 2 wins are.
But
Villanova and Virginia.
And I think 2-3 in quad one is actually pretty, like, that's one of the things that I think looks good for them, because that means all 3 of their losses are quad one teams.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I'm confused why they always end up so low.
But they've had some really tight games against bad teams, like 2-point win against Miami, 4-point win against Wake Forest. Like those are just not like 7-point win against VMI. Like these.
Yeah, but Wisconsin's also 3-3 in quad one and 4-2 in quad two. Yet they're so much higher than them. It kind of just, I'm confused why that is. Like, they obviously blew out Louisville. That definitely helps.
Oh yeah, that's been. I think that may be. I think honestly, like that's like a pretty large part of it.
Yeah. So it just.
And the Loyola Chicago win was also a blowout, which I know you're like a little skeptical of Loyola Chicago, but they're a pretty good team, and they've kind of got smacked by Wisconsin too.
Yeah. It just Wisconsin is really, they just haven't taken advantage of anything recently. That's my issue.
They've had their opportunities. I mean, they just lost to Penn State, which is propping up all Penn State's advanced numbers.
Yeah. AP poll had them at 19. Wisconsin, you had them 17. I had them 21. So we're just two away on opposite sides.
We balanced it. We're exactly what the voters were doing, which is probably how we're balancing Wisconsin out to be a 19th ranked team, basically.
Yeah. So, back to Virginia Tech. There's not a team that has there's not too many teams that have 2 really good top 15 wins. I know you don't have Virginia as high, but you still have them at 14. So beating them and Villanova just looks really, really good on a resume at this point.
Yeah, and but I think part of the thing is I didn't have Virginia Tech ranked last week, and you did, and I think
okay. That's kind of like the whole Virginia Alabama for me. Like I had Virginia already higher.
So Virginia Tech jumped really high to me. I obviously really like their week. It's just not. I couldn't get them that high, and part of that is because they just, for whatever reason, because they've been playing a lot of pretty close games against bad teams. Do not look that good in the advanced stats.
I had them getting over like the 3 teams you have: West Virginia, Florida State, and Wisconsin, just because like those teams all took a loss and Virginia Tech had like a really good win.
Yeah, and I can definitely understand Wisconsin. I mean, we'll see how Virginia Tech plays as the season goes.
Yeah, let's look at what they got ahead. They got easy week. I don't think they'll lose. They play at Pittsburgh, at Miami.
To be fair, the last Miami game was the 2-point game, so we'll see.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, the ACC is weird.
Yes.
But
then they'll have
week
Florida
after
State
that
soon.
they'll play at home against Florida State and Louisville, at UNC, who's I think we can all agree is looking a lot better.
Yep. I considered them this week. I mean,
I did.
They have not beat a single good team yet, but they're...
Yeah, but they also have lost... Like, all their losses are to, like, pretty respectful teams.
Exactly,
UNC's had a tough schedule, and they've just not done...
They haven't capitalized on it at all, but they also haven't really... But anyway, we don't really need to spend a ton of time discussing a team that's not even in the top 30.
It just... Yeah, Florida State also, same argument that I have for Wisconsin and kind of West Virginia. Florida State doesn't have like a. I was really high on Florida State last week, maybe even the week before. No, not the week before, but I was really high on Florida State last week. But they lost to. Let me see. Florida State lost. Oh, they lost to Georgia Tech, which is really underwhelming.
I think Georgia Tech is looking like a better team than they. There was a point in the season where I thought where Georgia Tech had gotten a pretty big win against. Well, I guess they beat North Carolina. This is North Carolina. They beat Clemson, and it didn't seem like those seemed like horrible losses.
Yeah, but also Florida State doesn't have like a great win. Also, in my opinion,
that's fair.
Like their best win. I mean, they beat Florida at home, but that was also. The game where Florida's best player had like a medical emergency and the team. I mean, you can't expect a team to really play well after that. And then they beat Louisville on the road, who I'm not huge on at all. Mm-hmm. And then their best win is probably Clemson at home by 19.
Yeah, Clemson, Louisville, those are very like in the same area.
Yeah, so that's why Virginia Tech's like Virginia Tech's had 2 chances against really good teams, and they've capitalized on both of them. So that's just kind of why I got Virginia Tech above those 3.
Yep. So you wanna move on to Florida?
Yeah. Speaking of a team that we just mentioned, Florida. Yeah, I have Florida. I think last week I had them in my others considered. Did you even consider them last week?
Nope.
Yeah. So this week I had them at 18, and you had them
22.
Yes. So, kind of my reasoning behind that, a lot of teams lost. It might be a little bit of a stretch to have them above West Virginia. Like, I can see that argument.
They did beat West Virginia. I get where you're kind of coming from with that.
Exactly. And, like, Florida's gotten some pretty good wins. They've beaten Tennessee. They've beaten West Virginia. They have, like, their only other, like, they have, like, 3 like respectable wins. 2 are like really good, and then after that they haven't had much. They haven't played too much as well. They're just 10-4. They got bad losses to Kentucky and Mississippi State.
Yeah, besides that, their other 2 losses, Alabama and Florida State, obviously not bad teams.
Yeah, I think they're trending in the right direction. 4-game winning streak. Not a lot of teams are doing that right now.
That's true. And with two really good wins in that 4-game winning streak.
Exactly. They killed Tennessee at home.
Yep.
They killed them. 26-point win. Held Tennessee to 49. And Tennessee doesn't have the greatest offense. They're only 63rd in KenPom. But Tennessee is the number 2 defense. And Florida dropped
75 points.
75 points on them.
Yeah, exactly. That Tennessee has been a very good defensive team for a while. Like they're just a good defensive team. They're a good, well coached team. That's obviously a very impressive thing to pull off. I've been into Florida at various points throughout the season. It's just that right when I thought Florida was like, oh, they're really making a little bit of run, they dropped the Kentucky and Mississippi State losses, which are just, I mean, pretty hard to get over for me.
Yeah, Kentucky, 5-10. It's just incredible to see Kentucky sitting at 5-10. Usually you see a loss to Kentucky and you're like, okay, sure, but yeah, that's a horrible loss this year. Mississippi State's 10-8. No one expects them to make a tournament push, but
they're not as bad as like it's not just like oh my gosh it's Mississippi the Mississippi
they've lost to like people like Liberty, Dayton, but they've also it's not like Mississippi State the only team they upset is Florida. They've also beaten Missouri, so they've like shown that they can like play.
I mean this year I think losing to Mississippi State on the road is probably like less embarrassing than losing to Kentucky at home.
Yeah, definitely.
I think you don't want Kentucky this year. You just don't want Kentucky to come in. And
you don't want to be one of Kentucky's 5 wins.
Yes, and I don't like they're not. It's like Kentucky. They're not a tournament team, but they're not like a complete joke. But they're still not like it's really. Kentucky is not is pretty bad this year.
Yeah. So I just had Florida. Let's see who I had them higher than. Obviously West Virginia. That's kind of a recency bias. They just beat them. I could see why people wouldn't be so high on that, but back to West Virginia, I just don't think they've capitalized on anything other than the Texas Tech game.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like more of their losses are forgivable is part of why I'm like.
That's fair, but
the only loss, like honestly, there's every single game West Virginia, like they played 4 top 5 or 3 of their losses have been to top 10 teams. and then their other 2 losses are to Florida and Kansas.
Yeah.
So West Virginia just hasn't really embarrassed themselves at all, while Florida has the losses that are just like
Yeah, but West
pretty
Virginia,
pathetic.
their best wins Texas Tech. Florida's
Best
best
one is Tennessee. I
which
think
is
those
Tennessee's. They're pretty similar, but just given the fact that they blew out Tennessee, that's a better win in my opinion.
Yeah, so
Texas Tech, they barely beat Texas Tech.
that's fair. I think really what the credit I'm giving West Virginia is that if they were in like Drake's conference, West Virginia would be a team, like an obviously like undefeated team. Like they're just like
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
obvious,
But I think
like,
you could say the same thing about Florida.
that's fair. Yeah, but like they're a team that like if you remove their games against like really high level competition, then they would be undefeated.
Yeah. I mean, I see that. Like, they haven't lost to anyone they shouldn't lose to. I mean, obviously, they should have beat Florida, but, like, there's no one, like, that's not ranked at the moment.
Yeah.
But it's just, when you're given the opportunities, you got to capitalize on. At this point, as I said with Virginia Tech, I like seeing wins. Florida's got big wins. They've capitalized on the Tennessee and the West Virginia matchup. It would be nice to see them get another win. They go to LSU this week. And then they'll go to Tennessee the week after, so they'll have some shots to keep moving up. But at this point in the season, if you've proven you can be the top team, that really does it for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Any reason you think I should have Florida lower?
I mean, I think I've covered most. Like, really, the biggest issue I have with them is that they have both those losses. If they had only one of those the losses between the Kentucky Mississippi State pair, I think I'd probably have them around where you have them.
Yeah, you have Kansas ahead of them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not like saying like compare them, but like maybe I have Kansas just below Florida. I think I had the tier that I had Florida in was the Kansas West Virginia. So I had those all in like one tier, those 3 teams. So it wasn't like far away from Florida and West Virginia, but you had both those teams like pretty high, a lot higher than Florida. So maybe like we can speak about Kansas a little bit, just because.
So yeah, what I like about
really weird.
What I like about Kansas is partly that they're another team that just hasn't really embarrassed themselves, and they have the good wins to go with it. They have the win over Oklahoma, West Virginia, Texas Tech,
and Creighton.
Creighton.
Yep.
Those are all good wins. And then their losses are teams like Gonzaga, Texas, Baylor, Oklahoma,
Yeah.
Tennessee. That's 5 top 10 teams basically. At least according to us, that's 5 top. Well, like we don't have Oklahoma. It's 5 top 12 teams according to us basically.
Yeah.
And then the loss to Oklahoma State, which is not horrific. I mean, I have Oklahoma State ranked. They're not.
Yeah, but it's the numbers are adding up for that.
Yeah, it's
that's
6 losses. Yeah, exactly.
It's hard at this point in the season to put 6 losses in the rankings. Obviously, I had.
We haven't
Kansas
the exact
in
same
the
spot.
tier.
Yeah, so there's not a ton of debate to have about Kansas.
It's just like kind of picking teams ahead of them.
Yeah, it's what we're looking for a little bit. I like the not failing thing, and then I also think just Kansas has this like a much nicer like set of wins.
Yeah, they definitely have some like, I mean, but.
Kansas have proven they're competitive with the top 10 teams in the country, even if they're not at the same level.
Florida's wins, what would I say, Tennessee and
it's
West Virginia.
Yeah.
Kansas has beaten West Virginia as well, but they lost to Tennessee like pretty badly. I mean, it's like not a fair way of looking at it, but their scoring differential against Tennessee, Kansas, and Florida beat them by 26, and Kansas lost by 19. So.
True, Kansas has been blown out in some games, and they have not. Some of those wins against top like teams like Oklahoma and Texas Tech are just very and Creighton also very close wins.
I know like you gotta like take the whole schedule, like you gotta take their whole schedule, but recently their past 2 out of their past 3 wins have been to TCU. The other was against Oklahoma, and that was about a month ago.
Yeah, no, they have been on a slide.
They had a horrible January.
Yes, they have been sliding heavily.
Yeah, I think before that I want to look back at what I had them. I think before that, so let's look back 4 or 3 weeks about, I had Kansas as number 7. Now I have them at, I think this is 19. Yeah, so Kansas has been plummeting. I had them at like number 3 to start, when we started our rankings. Yeah, so
exactly. I had them at 4 that first week, and then I've had 9 before all this losing, and then they've just been just dropping.
Yeah, so I don't know. Florida's on the Florida's going the right direction. Kansas is going the wrong direction, in my opinion. That's just kind of why I had Florida above them.
That's fair. I think that obviously if the trend continues, they'll flip. I mean, if the trend just continues for this week, it'll flip.
Yeah.
But we'll see what Kansas is playing. Kansas State and West Virginia this week. So I mean, there's an opportunity for them to lose to West Virginia, and at that point, it would be
that would be out. I don't think you can have 7 losses in.
You think they'd be out of the rankings?
Kansas?
I think they'd probably still be ranked.
I mean, obviously it depends what teams below them do, but I mean, Kansas right now is 23 in the AP poll. I mean, they might.
Oh, the AP poll will drop them out. I'd be shocked if I dropped them out, though. I don't think they're like. I think
it's the same thing with Minnesota. Minnesota has some really good wins, but they have 6 losses, and so they're.
I think Minnesota does not have any wins at that level of Kansas. Like it does have
Iowa.
some.
They beat Iowa and Michigan. Those are better wins.
Wait, did Minnesota beat both? Oh, you're right. Okay,
they
fine.
did.
Okay, but Minnesota also has worse loss, like way worse losses.
Yeah, obviously, but if Kansas that's 7 losses. Like that's just they're just not on the level of those teams if they lose to West Virginia.
Well, I'm not, but I don't think I could. Like I have Xavier at 25 right now. I don't think Kansas falls beside Xavier, even if Xavier beats their
Villanova. What if Xavier beats Villanova?
Okay, yeah, sure. Xavier beat Villanova. Then I'll give it to them.
Who else do you? Let's do a little.
They played DePaul and
predictive.
Villanova this week.
So who else do you have below Kansas? Creighton.
Yeah, they fall below Creighton if they lost West
Missouri
Virginia.
if they had a good week.
Yeah, I think if Xavier beats Villanova and Kansas, then Kansas and obviously if assuming all these teams
Purdue wins out.
Yeah, is Purdue playing anyone good this week?
Or like a USC team beats. Actually, USC and UCLA play each other this week, so one of those would be probably below Kansas.
But whoever wins that game is probably ranked for me this upcoming week.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Purdue plays Maryland, Northwestern. There's nothing they can really do there. If they lose one of those games, that's bad. If they win both those games, that's like meh.
Yeah, but I don't know. 7 losses to 12 wins, 12-7.
Well, I mean, I'm assuming they'd win their other game.
I know that would put them at 12-7. They're 11-6.
Wow, they've not played. I guess they.
They had a postpone against Iowa State and they canceled one of their non-conference.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. 7 losses at this point is really not good.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe I'm giving a little bit too much credit for Kansas.
Yeah, you also got to remember there's a little bit of Kansas bias always. Just Kansas is a good team. Everyone knows that. But they're not playing like that Kansas team that everyone's used to.
So do you want to move on to our last top 25 discussion?
Yes, we wanted. We were looking at the AP poll. They had Drake sliding in at 25, and Xavier received 25 votes.
Mm-hmm.
25 votes, and Drake got 117.
Yes. Yep.
How do you explain Drake being a better team than Xavier?
Well, I'm just not sure what anyone likes about Drake at this point. They've played one team this entire season that's in the top 100 in net.
Yeah.
All they've done it was Missouri State, and Missouri State's 94th, and both those wins were by less than 10 points.
They were down by 20 at one point in those games. I'm pretty sure
they had a struggle against Missouri State. I don't what is there to They went to overtime against Illinois State.
Yes, I literally after this week, if they had beaten those teams pretty well, they'd be 25 for me probably.
Yeah, okay.
But they barely are skimming by these horrible teams.
Yeah, exactly.
That Xavier probably would have beat by 20. I think that's a fair assessment to make.
If Drake goes undefeated for the rest of the season, I will rank them. But that's because that requires them to beat Loyola Chicago twice.
Yeah, I understand.
And I would be shocked if they win both those games.
I understand taking a team that's undefeated, just winning more games as other teams are falling, but Drake, they're arguably not even winning these games. They're just not. They're not playing these teams well at all. If any of these teams up here that we have ranked barely beat Illinois State, they'd be that would be one of their worst things on their resume.
If you want to go with a team that just hasn't lost really much, there's some small conference teams that haven't lost much. You could look at
also Xavier only has 2 losses.
Yes, exactly. Well, I think the Big East I consider they're not kind of a somewhat small conference.
Yeah, I mean they lost to Creighton on the road as expected.
Yep, and then the Seton Hall loss.
They lost badly, but they beat Oklahoma by 22. They dropped 99 points on what we have as what the AP poll is the number 19.
Exactly. They Oklahoma has been obviously on the uptrend a lot since that game.
Yes,
but That win looks great right now.
Drake is only playing their teams closer and closer. They're not getting better.
To be fair, they just had the hardest stretch of their entire season, Max.
It's absurd. I was considering Drake. I've had them in my others considered for like about 3 weeks. They stayed there for me this week. I mean, obviously I'm considering them. They're 16-0, but holy crap. There are better teams that you could put in. USC, I think, is a better team.
Oh, absolutely. I think USC deserves it more.
I don't have USC in. You have them at... Do you have them 25?
Others considered for me. I have
so we
25.
both had them at in our others considered. I consider them more than Drake.
If you want to look for like the teams that just haven't failed much, you got Xavier, as we mentioned. You also got St. Bonaventure, who I think would be more deserving of a spot than Drake.
Yeah.
I know they've only played 10 games. But they've beaten VCU, which is way better than any team that VCU is 100 times better, or not 100 times, but way better than any team Drake has even played this season.
Yes.
And they crushed VCU.
VCU's on like a bubble team right now. I'm not seeing any of the teams that
obviously
Drake has
not
played.
Missouri State. You think Missouri State's going to make the tournament this year?
That would be absurd.
Yeah. Missouri State, the team chilling at 7-4 in the Missouri Valley Conference.
It's just absurd. I understand having a 16-0 team, but they're not playing. They shouldn't be 16-0.
It's not like they're like it's not like in years past where we had like a team like San Diego State who was playing a few real teams mixed into their like just light schedule
and beating them and beating teams by a good amount.
And smoking the teams they should smoke.
Yeah.
Who is like what is Drake doing that has warranted this? They've played. Yeah, they're 14-0. I don't even know.
And they're also 61 in Ken Palm.
Yes, they are bad in Ken Palm. None of the advanced stats look good because they're just not beating these teams by very much.
Yep, and they're playing bad teams.
They're 43rd in the simple rating system. I bet they do pretty well in net because they're 13th in net because net loves the teams that just don't lose.
You gotta love that 0-0 quad 1 record. Yeah, it's absurd.
Yeah.
Xavier, let me see. Xavier's 34 in net. They're not great in quad 1 either, 1-1, but obviously they beat Oklahoma. And quad 2, they're 4-1.
And St. Bonaventure is one spot behind Xavier.
Just for time purposes, we're going to skip the Wooden Awards for this week. We also might discontinue that segment in the future, and we're going to try to figure out a segment to put in between the games of the week and our rankings. So right now we're going to talk about some games of the week. Let's just talk about the big 3 games. Tonight or tomorrow, if you're listening on Tuesday, or not tomorrow, yesterday. Big top 15 matchup. Second time Texas Tech is playing a top 15 matchup on a Monday. Last week was West Virginia. Now they're hosting Oklahoma. That'll be an exciting game.
Yeah, good. Could be a big win for Texas Tech. Could move them back up into the top 10 or move them into the top 10.
Yeah, they both are. Texas Tech's just been pretty consistent. Oklahoma's on a big what's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, they're very hot, and we obviously had them right next to each other in our rankings. With 12, we both had them at 12 and 13.
Yeah,
flipped. So this is an interesting game between two teams that were both.
The winner most likely will be top 10 for me.
Probably,
just because I'm assuming someone else will lose.
Yeah,
especially the Iowa.
With the Iowa House, although I don't see either of those teams jumping Iowa if Iowa loses.
Really? I mean, Iowa just hasn't gotten a win.
That would be, yeah, you're right. That could be true. Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, obviously, it's something we'd have to consider.
Yeah. So that will, yeah. But anyway, do you wanna move on to the bigger games this week?
The best game of the week.
Mm-hmm.
Baylor at Texas. It's finally Baylor's chance to prove they're the number 1 team in the country.
We've discussed this game a little bit earlier. I think this game would move them to the number 1 spot.
This is Tuesday night.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, Texas is kind of losing relevance. They're still a top 10 team, no question, but if Texas can get a win over Baylor, that'd be incredible. I know it's at home, but Baylor's still probably favored by 7 points,
6.
maybe 6 points.
Yep.
Yeah, so
yeah, it's a road game.
It would be big for
this. Just shows. I think this especially displays just how far ahead Baylor and Gonzaga are than the rest of the teams. On the road against a top 10 team, Baylor is favored by 6.
Yes, exactly. So
this should be a really interesting game, but it may just be Baylor's to win anyway. This may just be the Baylor-Gonzaga year, and I'm really hoping we get these teams to the tournament.
And I don't even think Texas falls out of the top 10 if they lose this.
No.
Maybe,
I mean, they're
maybe
lower.
The Oklahoma-Texas Tech winner jumps.
Oh, yeah, that's true, because they are lower in the top 10. I could see them getting into
they're 6 in the AP poll. I think we both had them at 8.
Yep.
So, but you can't really fault them too much for. And they also play Oklahoma State later that week, so if they win that game, they could.
That's true, but they could lose both those games. It's possible.
That's fair.
But anyway, you want to talk about the final game?
Yeah, our big game. We're a Ohio State podcast. We finally have our huge game of the season. We're going to Iowa.
Well, our huge game of the season is
Michigan, obviously. But this is the best one so far. We played some good teams. Illinois, Wisconsin. We beat those teams. Now it's our time to beat the king of Luka Garza.
Yeah, we are rolling right now. I'm loving this team's offense. It looks like we have a real identity with shooters. We have EJ Liddell, who's been on an absolute tear and has established himself as the best player on our team.
If you like scoring, this might be the best game for you to watch this year. Iowa is number 2 in offensive KenPom, 97th in defense. Ohio State's number 5 in offensive KenPom, 66th in defense. So this game might just be who can score the most points. There are scorers at every position on both teams. I don't know how we're going to guard Luka Garza. Hopefully we can figure out some sort of scheme.
It's just going to be a mob.
It's our only game this week, so hopefully the team will just go all out, balls to the wall, and Chris Holman will scheme up something, but it's gonna be crazy.
Actually, yeah, really good point about how this is gonna be so offensive heavy. These two, yeah, just in terms of how not great defenses and absurd offenses, there's possibly not a better matchup in the entire league.
Yeah, no, this will be fun. It could be better than Texas versus Baylor just for excitement level. Because, honestly, I think this will probably be a closer game.
And we're obviously, part of that is probably a bias that we're Ohio State fans.
Yeah, we didn't really even talk about them this week. We're on a roll. We beat Penn State earlier this week, and then who we just beat?
Michigan State.
Yeah, Michigan State. So, yeah, we had a consistent week. We're just kind of coasting into the big matchup. I think we've won 5 of our last 6.
Yeah.
And we could be a top 5 team. We talked about this a little earlier. We could be a top 5 team.
I am super duper excited for this game. I cannot wait. I'm a little bit nervous too because I think there's a real possibility that we end up with too many EJ Liddell or try to guard Luka Garza minutes. And
there's just not a good answer for who guards him. Hopefully we're shooting well from 3 because everyone knows 3 beats 2. 3 is higher than 2.
I think that's probably our team strategy for this week.
Just shoot well from 3 and just outpace Luka Garza scoring on us at will.
Yep.
So,
yeah. It's going to be great. It's going to be.
I think the week has the big games, like Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. Those are the best games. Saturday has a better slate. Obviously, Saturday tends to be that case.
Yeah.
But there's no standout game. Alabama at Missouri. Those are 2 top 20 teams. Wisconsin at Illinois, another great one. Kansas at West Virginia is another top 25 teams, and then 10 o'clock on Saturday, UCLA at USC. Hopefully we get what's his face calling that game? Who's the
Bill Walton?
Bill Walton. That would be a fun one to
watch. I would love
some
Bill Walton calling that game. That would be nice.
I think we're running pretty long, so I think we'll leave it there. So thanks for listening if you did, and we'll see you next week.